Hey, grace and peace, everybody. We're back. You saw the thumbnail, you saw the title. So you know what we're going to be doing? It's going to be story time with Whit. We're going to do a little story time and jump into this topic, but work with me here. Let's have a little story. Imagine you have a family member who passes away and they will to you a very classic car. And let's say that you're a car person. Okay, everybody's a car person in this story. But the car needs a lot of work, lots of work. And you see the potential in it, though. You see the potential. And you say, man, I'm going to put in the work. I'll put in the weekend hours. I'm going to invest in a mechanic. I'm going to get the thing done. And over time, takes you several years, you get this car up to showroom, factory presentation levels. I mean, it is immaculate. From top to bottom, bumper to bumper, front to back, it is amazing. And you go as far as your car is featured in car magazines. Aficionados come to see it. You actually even build a little tiny garage to keep it away from just the hoi polloi. And it means a lot to you. And this car has generated you multiple times over. What you invested into it, you've gotten it back in notoriety, articles written about you, all that kind of stuff like that. And car shows want to fly you in the car out. It's just crazy. It's crazy what has happened with this car. This car has been a real blessing. But one day, shockingly, to your great dismay, you find out that the mechanic that you trusted from early on, you found this mechanic and you really felt the best about this mechanic, and they were upstanding, or so you thought. You come to find out that this mechanic is not who you thought they were. They're dishonest. They're shady. They are, dare I say, in some instances, just the worst person, the complete opposite of what you thought. And so you just say, you silently stop working with this mechanic. And you go find you another mechanic. You do a lot more due diligence. You vet them, and you have another mechanic that just kind of goes along with you to help you with the car and all that kind of stuff like that. Anything that happens, they're right there, Johnny on the spot to take care of it. Well, one day you get a phone call, and it's that first mechanic that calls you. It says, hey man, I see you've been going here and there. I see the car traveled out to California. I see that later on you were in New York with your car and all that stuff like that. And you haven't called me to come with you. Like, what's going on? And you silently say, hey, I just want to tap somebody else to work with. And that's it. You don't mention to the mechanic that you know that they're unethical, that you know that they're unscrupulous. And so the mechanic says, hey, all right, fine, no problem. Let bygones be bygones. But if you ever tell anybody about anything that you might think you know about me as it relates to me being ethical, I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to drag you about that car. I'm going to drag that car through the junkyards of social media, through the junkyards of media, and that car will never be seen as anything but a heap of bolts and rust and junk ever again. So you keep your mouth shut, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. What do? You say, all right, peace out. And you don't say anything about that mechanic. You rarely even mention that mechanic's name. And whenever you do, you speak around that person's name. You never bring it up ever again, because you know that this mechanic does have the potential to completely decimate your career, because your reputation and your branding and your name is associated with this car that you poured so much blood, sweat, and tears into, so much money into. If they get out there and start saying, well, hey, I was the mechanic on this car and this, that, and the other, and saying things true or false, because you now realize that this person will say things that are false. You say, man, I get on this person's bad list, they might very well drag me for no good reason, and I won't have a way to defend myself. So you choose to stay quiet and not put that person out there at all. I think, in my opinion, that's the end of story time with Jason. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I think, in my opinion, that's what happened to Brandon Tatum. Brandon Tatum found out that the person that he had been working with to start Blexic the female counterpart to help in this Black conservative space, he found out that she wasn't the ethical person that he thought she was. She wasn't the person of high standards that he thought she was. But because they'd been together so long, because they probably shared text messages and emails and voicemail messages and all that kind of stuff like that, maybe some of them could be perceived as out of order or inappropriate or what's going on here, this, that, and the other. Maybe that's why Brandon Tatum has chosen to stay quiet. I want to bring up for your review Brandon's most recent Substack. He has a Substack, which is basically like an email newsletter. And he says this: TPUSA responds to Candace Owens over leaked Charlie Kirk messages. And this was delivered just a day ago. I'll just go over it real quickly. I don't like this drama. I don't like leaked screenshots. And I definitely don't like people digging through a dead man's private messages for clicks. But since it's out there, I must set the record straight. Thanks for reading. Okay, sorry about that. I skipped that part. First things first, privacy and respect. Private messages are private, period. Why do you think he has to say that? I think we all know that, but we all now have seen that private messages, if Candace gets her hands on it, it's a wrap. So we already got that, but let's keep going. Charlie can't defend himself. He's gone. Turning a grieving family's worst weeks into internet chum is wrong. If someone is in a group chat, wanted the world to see it, they could have posted it while he was alive. Instead, we've got a screenshot that Andrew Colvett says he shared with a few government officials during the earliest hours of the investigation. Then it spread, and Candace Owens published it. Colvett has since confirmed that the texts are authentic. Pastor Rob McCoy, who actually knew Charlie, also pushed back on the conspiracy frenzy surrounding those messages in Charlie's faith, calling much of what's flying around exactly what it is: rumor and speculation. Lost a donor, leaving the pro-Israel cause. Yes, the leaked text shows Charlie saying he lost a major Jewish donor after refusing to cancel Tucker Carlson. And yes, he vented that it leaves me no choice but to lead the pro-Israel cause. Emotions run hot when you're getting hit from every direction, especially on Israel. That doesn't mean he stopped caring about Israel. It means he was done leading with it publicly while taking arrows from every side. Colvin literally said Charlie's feelings were complicated, nuanced, and ongoing wrestle, consistent with frustrations he'd voiced publicly. And let's be real about donors. If you give big money to a mission and the organization platforms a voice that you think undermines that mission, you're allowed to walk. That's not sinister. That's stewardship. I agree 100%. Like why is that surprising? Is that supposed to shock us? It's almost like it's presented as if you're owed this donorship. Once I donate to you once, I can only continue to donate to you, not ask more questions, reduce my amount, or anything of that nature. For context, on the donor flap and how the text surfaced, see Newsweek's roundup and social posts that are circulated, the screenshots. And by the way, all of those are going to be listed at the bottom of this Substack, as well as the description of this video. While publishing the screenshot was a bad call, even Andrew admits he didn't publish the grab because it was a private exchange. I agree. Once a screenshot leaves the circle, you can't control it. And now everyone with an agenda is cherry picking lines to build their narrative. That's precisely how conspiracies metastasize. I don't disagree. No stone unturned is not equal to leaked case details. You heard Andrew say he's an eyewitness and was told not to comment because it could compromise the case. That's standard. Investigators hide specific facts to test specific suspects' knowledge later. When the internet blasts those details, it muddies the interrogations and gives the defense free ammo. Stop publishing investigative crumbs and score points online if you want justice for Charlie. Loyalty is greater than clout. Friendship runs deeper than politics. Charlie disagreed with people publicly and privately, but he was loyal. That's why the screenshot culture is so gross. Congratulations on being a unicorn if you've never vented in private about a colleague or ally. The rest of us talk to our spouses, pastor, and close friends, and then we cool off and do the right thing. Turning private venting into public proof is how you burn trust, not how you build a movement. Final word. If you want justice for Charlie, stop feeding the outrage machine. Let investigators work. Stop laundering private chats into public tribal warfare. And if you are going to talk about donors, Israel, or media pressure, do it honestly with context and receipts, not weaponize fragments. We owe Charlie that. We owe the truth that. And we owe our own integrity that. And here's some of the links to those right there. And I'll leave a link to his Substack as well. If you want to support Officer Tatum on his Substack, I'll make sure I leave that on here as well. I'm just wondering, and of course, lots of people, myself included, wanted Brandon Tatum to be more direct and call Candace out by name, this, that, and the other. And I'm just wondering, after thinking about it, reflecting on it a little bit more, maybe it's because he realizes the type of person, maybe he realized a long time ago, the type of person that she is, that will drag up old emails, dredge up text messages, scour and scrape to find some kind of nugget to make you look bad. And he didn't want to be a part of that. Maybe that's why Charlie allowed her to leave from Turning Point and never really, he still rocked with her as relates to a professional friendship, but he just knew that they couldn't work together more closely because of the type of person that she was. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's why Brandon has been dancing around the topic. Because even in this, I think we all can see there's a lot of spots where he's basically calling Candace out. He just doesn't call her by name. And maybe that's it. He knows if he calls her by name and she turns her efforts and attention and all of her nitpicking skills out on Brandon Tatum, he knows it will look bad. And it won't be there's going to have to be a whole lot that he would have to answer for and whatnot that she can take out of context and nitpick. Kind of why he says so much in this post about the nitpicking of the content. Like right here at the end, he really ends with, which I just seems to be interesting. And if you're going to talk about donors, Israel, or media pressure, do it honestly with context and receipts, not weaponize fragments. The last thing right there kind of points out, like, what do we know? That's what she did. She did weaponize fragments, and they were out of context and they weren't receipts. And I think that's why he's saying that, because ultimately he knows if she turns her cannons on him, she turns her attention on him, it's going to turn ugly, because she's going to do this just like she did to TPUSA. She's done to all the other people that she's attacked since Charlie's passing. And I think that's what happened. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Give me your thoughts, all that kind of good jazz like that. If you made it this far to the end, why don't you leave me a book emoji to let me know that, hey, I hung out to the end, Jason, and I appreciate it so much. Have a great rest of the day. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the JWhit podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment, because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.